Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, I'm not sure. How is everyone? I didn't do a video yesterday. I don't know what I was doing. How is everyone? As if you can answer me. I keep saying that. Anyway, you can always call me, FaceTime, chat. That'd be great if you want to. So, what are we going to do today? This is something anyone can do, grades 1 through 8. The little ones will need some help, and the older ones can do this all on their own. So we're going to make some tic-tac-toe pouches, and you can put your tic-tac-toe pieces inside. Now, these are great to play with, but also think about maybe making some of these for gifts. Maybe the next birthday party you have, you could give these out as a favor instead of buying something. You could also make them for friends, for family. So there's two ways we're going to make them. We can make them out of felt. I just know that not everyone has felt and needles and thread at home. So we can also make them out of paper bags. So this one we're going to do first because I just started it. So all you're going to do, I think I can, I don't know if I can, okay, is cut 2 squares. These are about, I've forgotten now, let's see, about 5 inches square. And then you draw the tic-tac-toe lines on them. So I just took my ruler. Of course, this is a knitting ruler, but anyway, again, I can't find my 12-inch ruler. So you make some marks and draw the grid. Now the little ones will need help, and the older ones can figure out how to do this. Just find the center, which in this case is 2.5, and I went an inch on either side and made the grid. Does that make sense? Probably not. I'll try again. So it's 5 inches, 2.5 is the center. Make a little mark there. That's the center line. And then an inch on either side of 2.5, 1.5, and 3.5. And draw your grid. So what you can do is I drew it with pencil first to make sure I had it right. And now I'm going to draw it with a Sharpie. So you can just take a, I'm going to see if I can move this camera a little bit. I don't know. Can you see down there now? Yeah. So you just take the Sharpie. I happen to have a blue one. And go over it. And then you have a tic-tac-toe grid. So you can sew through paper. Now here's the thing. If you have a sharp needle, you can sew through the paper. If you don't have a sharp needle, you can use the hole punch like we did in another project. Put a little piece of tape on your yarn and sew through that way. So we're going to do that. So you put them together, decide where the top's going to be, and punch all the way around. And you can put them fairly close together so they won't fall out. Your treasures on the inside. Now I think that the fun part of this is going to be, what am I going to use for my tic-tac-toe markers? Well, what I did was go through my button jar and pick out some buttons. So you can just do that if you happen to have a lot of buttons. I got some dark buttons and some light buttons, and then you can choose which are the X's and which are the O's. Also on my walk, I wasn't particularly successful, whatever reason, on my walk, but I bet on your walks, or if you're out in your backyard, you can find some little pebbles. So if you find some light pebbles and some dark pebbles, you can do that same thing. let's say you can only find light pebbles. You could then draw on each one. If you had only light pebbles, you could get your Sharpie and you could just draw an X on some of them, and then you have X's, and the ones without an X are the O's. I don't know where the camera is. You could use acorns. I found some acorn hats. You could use acorn hats and acorn, the seed part. And look what else happened, is when I cut out the hole punch, I got these. Now they're very small, so you might put a lot of them in there, but you could do this. These could be the O's, and you could put X's on some of them, and you could use these. So you could be kind of creative in deciding how to make your tic-tac-toe markers. And I think that's kind of the fun part. So here you are, and you have your holes punched in there, and you could then just thread it through with some yarn, and it would be finished. So here's one that's all done, and I can put my X's and O's inside. And then when you're in the car or traveling, or again, you could give them as a gift. Now the one thing you might want to do when you're done is have something to close it up so they won't fall out. So if you're using a sharp needle, you could go in two sides. Oh, my scissors. And have two long ends and tie a bow. And that would close it up. Little bow, and then when you're ready to play, you could just untie it and get out your markers that way. You can do that on the top. I put an extra hole right here in the very top, so you could put an extra one through there and tie it together after you weave through your yarn through here. So you could use, I use a paper bag, a paper I use a paper grocery bag. You could use a cereal box. We made Rice Krispie treats. I know, not very healthy. And I have an empty box of Rice Krispies. You could cut the cereal box and use that. The other day I used the cardboard holder from some sparkling water. So you could use any kind of cardboard, but I would say thin is better for the hole punching. This you can sew through with a sharp needle. This would be, you could easily sew right through that with a sharp needle if you wanted to, if you had one. If you don't, again, a hole punch. I think at this point, usually what I say is, what are your questions? And I can't do that. Well, I could ask. You could always respond and say there's questions. Do you like my background here? This over here, I'm pointing to it. That embroidered skirt. My mother made that back in the 70s. I still have it. Anyway, I'm like a squirrel, distracted, because, yeah, there's weird stuff going on in the world, and I am not talking to enough people. Call me. I have plenty of time. So anyway, here is a great little idea. Fabric, sharp needle if you have it, paper, hole punch if you don't, and there you go. So I think that I might take the weekend off. I don't know. I mean, I have nothing to do. I have a lot of other ideas. I'm trying to come up with things that you have at home, with stuff you have at home. So if you want me to do something, you want to learn something you think I can do, just let me know, and I will try. Okay, friends?